All right, this is chapter 1.1, Where Do Data Come From? All right, a couple things we're going to discuss today are individuals and variables. These are the first two vocabulary words you need to know. An individual is nothing more is than a set of data that's basically it's described by a set of data. It could be a person, a thing, a place. So let me go ahead and increase that. All right, so individuals are described by a set of data. All right. Now we have what we call variables. Variables are the characteristics that are used to describe the individuals. And they have different values for different individuals. So like one sofa might have a different characteristic than another sofa. So again, the variables are the characteristics that describe a set of individuals. All right, so when we have a set of data, we can put them into two categories. There are categorical, which is a group or a category, and those things can be something like colors. They could be items that you can't average, zip codes, um, social security numbers, so forth. Now, the other is quantitative. Quantitative is you can have numerical values for which arithmetic operations can make sense. Basically, you can take the average. You can't take the average of a social security number, or you can't take the average of a zip code. Therefore, those are called quantitative values. So the two things that we're going to talk about are categorical, and quantitative. Now, I know I'm going fast for some of you. I will post this on the website so that you can look over it again and listen to it again. So some of you who are writing currently, uh, you can either press rewind on the video and you can go over it again. All right, the first thing we want to talk about is an observational study. Now this is very important. An observational study is when someone observes individuals and measures variables of interest. So basically, remember we talked about a variable. A variable is a characteristic of an individual. So an observational study observes individuals and measures those characteristics of interest, but that does not attempt to influence the response, does not attempt to influence the response. For instance, y'all might have watched a movie years ago called Gorillas in the Mist. It was Sigourney Weaver um, who was portraying Dr. Jane Goodall, who lived many, many years in the forest or in the, I guess it is in Africa, amongst the silverback gorillas. Um, it started as an observational study where she was just observing the gorillas. Unfortunately, it went a little bit further than that because she started interacting with the gorillas and noticing they had similar human characteristics. One of the worst things that she did was she started feeding the animals to manipulate um, their response. So when she would put out bananas or so forth, at first they just ignored her, but then eventually they started eating the bananas, and therefore she started influencing how they reacted because they were expecting food, sort of like Pavlov's dogs. Whenever the bell would ring, the dogs would start salivating. So she went a little bit further than an observational study. The purpose to an observational study is to describe some group or situation. All right. The purpose of an observational study is to describe some group or situation. The next thing I want to talk about is sampling. Now, many of y'all have gone to the mall and you're walking through the mall and you'll see these people with clipboards walk up to just complete strangers and say, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" They're doing what you call a sample survey. They're they're pinpointing people who they think might fall within their realm of what they're trying to study, and they give them a survey. They often offer uh, prizes or money or some type of compensation in order to get them willing to take the sample survey. But a sample survey are used in observational studies to measure characteristics of some group of individuals. Therefore, we will call them the population. All right? So, sample surveys are used in observational studies to measure characteristics of some group of individuals, which are called the population, by studying only some of its members, which is a sample. So when you, instead of taking um, an entire population of a city, or let's say we want to survey all African American males. Well, we can't go throughout all of Dallas and survey all African American males. But what we can do is we can take a sample. So probably, and that we're going to study later on what is a good sample size. All right. So maybe I want to survey 20, maybe even 100 African American males for my survey. That is what we call a sample. So when you take a small portion of the population, that is a sample. All right, and I know this is kind of hard to read, ladies and gentlemen, but these are all definitions that are within the first 10 pages of your textbook. They're just in the little boxes, so no need to worry if you don't get them written down. You can go back and look at them. All right, a census is a sample survey, but however, it attempts to include the entire population in the sample. Every so often, every few years, the United States has a census, and they try to count and try to take information for the entire population. Now that's, if you think about it, how many people we have just here in the Metroplex in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Well, if you take the whole United States, including Hawaii and other provinces that we have, that's a lot of people. Millions upon millions upon millions, billions of people. Okay, so that can be very costly. So a local sample survey doesn't cost as much as a census. A census is going to cost a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars to perform, because not only do you have to have the labor to do the survey, but you have to have the labor to decipher the observations or the data or information that you get from the survey. The last thing we're going to talk about are experiments. Now, an experiment imposes some treatment in order to observe their response. For instance, if I have two groups, I might give one group who, maybe it's a group of people who suffer from migraine headaches. I can split them up into two groups. I can have one group take Excedrin PM. The other group I would give a placebo, say a sugar pill. So in this case, in an experiment, we're going to impose a treatment in order to observe their response. The purpose of this experiment is to study whether the treatment causes a change in the response. So we want to impose a treatment, and again, we want to observe whether or not the treatment causes a change in the response. And that is the end of your notes for chapter 1.1. When you come to class, we will go ahead and go over the questions in 1.1, followed up by chapter 1.2.